There is a moment in every betrayal where you realize the person destroying you still thinks you don't know. Judas Iscariot is standing in the courtyard of the high priest's house, and he is negotiating the price of his teacher's life. The stones under his feet are cold. The air smells like incense and lamp oil. Somewhere outside these walls, Jesus is teaching in the temple courts, his voice carrying across the stone porticos. And Judas knows exactly where he'll be tomorrow night. He knows because for 3 years he has walked beside this man. He has listened to every parable. He has watched the miracles. He has eaten from the same bowl. And now, Matthew 26:15, Judas says to them, "What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you?" They count out 30 pieces of silver. The coins clink against each other as they stack them. It's the price for a slave, the exact compensation you'd pay if your ox gored someone's servant. It's written right there in the law of Moses. 30 pieces, 4 months' wages. Enough to start over somewhere else. Judas takes the money. And from that moment, Matthew tells us he sought opportunity to betray him. Not a moment of weakness, an opportunity. He is hunting now. He is watching Jesus' movements, calculating which nights the crowds thin out, mapping the routes they take from the city. This isn't impulse. This is planning. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Between the handshake in the high priest's courtyard and the kiss in the garden, there are days. And during those days, Judas is still one of the 12. He is still at the table. He is still listening to Jesus teach. The money is hidden somewhere in his cloak, and he is carrying it while he walks beside the man he's already sold. Can you imagine the split that requires? To live in 2 realities at once? To keep your face steady while your heart is counting coins? Then comes Passover. They gather in an upper room, 13 men reclining around low tables, the smell of roasted lamb and bitter herbs filling the air. This is the meal their ancestors ate the night before God split the Red Sea. The night God rescued them from slavery. Every Passover is a remembering. Every cup of wine is a celebration of deliverance. And somewhere during the meal, Jesus goes still. The room is loud, voices overlapping, bread being torn and passed. Then his voice cuts through all of it. Matthew 26:21. Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. The silence is instant. You can hear the lamp wicks burning. And then every man at that table starts asking the same question, one after another. Matthew says they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? They're not asking because they're planning betrayal. They're asking because they're terrified of their own capacity for it. 11 voices, desperate and overlapping. Is it me? Could it be me? Judas waits. He lets everyone else ask first. Then he leans in and uses a different word. Not Lord. Master. A more formal distance. Matthew 26:25. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? And Jesus, looking straight at him, says, Thou hast said. That phrase in the ancient world is not a question. It's a confirmation. It means you already know the answer. You just spoke it yourself. And the staggering thing is, that Judas doesn't leave. He stays at the table. He keeps eating. The betrayer is being named, and he just sits there because Judas has already made his choice. And when you've chosen silver over someone, you stop seeing them as human. You see them as transaction, as opportunity, as the thing standing between you and what you want. They finish the meal. They sing a hymn. They walk out into the night toward the Mount of Olives, toward a garden called Gethsemane. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John deeper into the trees to pray. The rest stay near the entrance. And Judas slips away into the darkness. He is walking back toward the city now, fast, and behind him comes a crowd. Matthew 26:47 calls it a great multitude with swords and staves, from the chief priests and elders. This is not an arrest. This is a raid. They're coming for someone they think might resist, but they don't know what he looks like. These officials have been plotting Jesus' death for months, and they've never been close enough to see his face. That's why they need Judas. That's why they're paying him. He is the inside man. He knows which one is Jesus in the dark. They reach the garden. Judas gave them a sign, saying, "Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he." And he doesn't just point. He doesn't shout. He comes to Jesus and says, "Hail, Master," and kisses him. The kind of kiss you'd give a beloved teacher. Affection as weapon. Intimacy as signal. And in that moment, Jesus says something that should crack the earth open. Matthew 26:50. "Friend, wherefore art thou come?" Friend. He doesn't say traitor. He doesn't say Judas, "You snake." He doesn't say, "How could you?" He says friend. And he asks, not why are you doing this, but for what purpose? As if even now, even with the mob pressing close, and the torches burning, and the hands about to seize him, Jesus is giving Judas one last chance to name what he's doing, to say it out loud, to see it. But Judas doesn't answer, and the hands reach out, and Jesus is taken. And Judas walks away with 30 pieces of silver in his purse and blood on his mouth from the kiss. Except he doesn't walk far, because morning comes, and Judas is standing in the temple courts again, the same place he made the deal. And now he can't breathe. He sees what they're doing to Jesus. He sees the trial, the mockery, the sentence. He thought this would be different. Maybe he thought Jesus would escape. Maybe he thought it wouldn't go this far. Maybe he thought he could live with it. But Matthew 27:3 says when he saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented himself. That word repented is not the soft kind. It's metamelomai in Greek. It means to be seized with remorse, to be crushed by regret. It's the moment you realize you have destroyed something that cannot be rebuilt. And Judas tries to undo it. He runs back to the priests. He brings the 30 pieces of silver back to them. Matthew 27:4, saying, "I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood." And they look at him and say, "What is that to us? See thou to that." They won't take it back. There is no refund for betrayal, no return policy on murder. The deal is done. And Judas is left standing there with 30 pieces of silver that suddenly weigh more than his whole body. He can't keep them. No one will take them. Matthew 27:5. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple, and departed, and went and hanged himself. The man who sold Jesus for the price of a slave couldn't live one day as a free man afterward. Now I need you to hear something. This story is not about Judas being uniquely evil. It's about what happens when you decide someone's value in your life is less than something else you want. And I know you didn't sell anyone for silver, but maybe you sold someone's trust because it was inconvenient to keep carrying it. Maybe you threw someone's name into the middle of a conversation to redirect the blame away from you. Maybe you smiled at someone while mentally calculating how much keeping them close was going to cost you, and you decided it was too much. Maybe you had good reasons. Maybe they hurt you first. Maybe you were protecting yourself. Maybe you were just tired. But here's what's keeping you up at night. You thought you'd be fine after. You thought you could make the trade and walk away clean. And now it's 3 a.m, and you're staring at the ceiling, and there's a ringing in your chest that sounds a lot like 30 pieces of silver hitting stone, and it won't stop. Here's what Judas didn't know. Even at the kiss, Jesus called him friend. Even as Judas was handing him over to execution, Jesus was still speaking to him as someone who could be reached. Not enemy, not monster, friend. Because Jesus knew something Judas had forgotten. Betrayal doesn't end the story unless you choose to let it. Peter denied Jesus 3 times that same night, swore he didn't know him, cursed to make it convincing, and Peter wept bitterly. But Peter came back. Peter stood at the empty tomb. Peter heard Jesus say, "Do you love me?" And Peter said yes 3 times, once for every denial. And Jesus gave him the church. The difference wasn't the size of the sin. It was what they did with the weight of it after. Judas threw the money down and ran. Peter turned around and ran back. Tonight, if you're carrying something you thought you could live with, and now you realize you can't, the coins on the floor are not the end. You can't undo it, but you don't have to die with it either. The thing you thought you needed more than them is still sitting there worthless. And the person you hurt is still waiting to see what you do next. The money was never the point. The point is whether you believe there's a version of yourself worth more than 30 pieces of anything you thought you had to have.